today in Mark 6 is a perfect place for us to go. This story doesn't pretend the disciples have unlimited energy. It's a story of tired people, huge need, and impossible math. And Jesus is not overwhelmed by any of it. Now, an interesting thing about the book of Mark is when you jump into it, and if you were to start reading it from chapter 1 through the rest, is it moves fast. It's like his favorite word is immediately, and then, and then, and then. It's kind of like a scene from Dude, Where's My Car from like start to end, you know? It's just and then, immediately, immediately, immediately. And so it moves fast, but what happens in this specific moment, right before the story that we're looking at today, is Jesus is teaching, people are hurting, crowds are gathering, conflict is building. And right before this passage, Mark tells us that a guy named John the Baptist has been executed. And it's a big deal. Okay, because not only is John a prophet, meaning he was a messenger that God used to deliver difficult truths to people, but John was also a close friend and family member of Jesus. And the extra layer behind it is John is doing the exact same thing that Jesus and his disciples are doing. And so there's this kind of like cloud over this thing of we're next. And so this is not this story, and perhaps you've heard it before, this story isn't some like light church picnic that we're jumping into. There is real heaviness behind this. The disciples are coming back from what the Bible, we'll read here in a second, calls it a ministry tour. Right? And there's grief, there's pressure, there's need, and there's exhaustion. And that's what we step into this story with. Picking up in verse 30, it reads like this in verses 30 through 31. It says, the apostles returned to Jesus from their ministry tour. See, Jesus had actually sent them out to go and do and teach the things that Jesus was doing. And this was like, kind of like the first time that they got to go do that by themselves. And so they were probably spent, but they were probably really excited to come back and get to tell Jesus all about it. So the apostles returned to Jesus from their ministry tour, and told him all that they had done and taught. Then notice this. Then Jesus said, let's go off by ourselves to a quiet place and rest a while. He said this because there were so many people coming and going that Jesus and his apostles didn't even have time to eat. Now, one of the things that I like picture as this is happening is they are excited to tell Jesus exactly what it is, and they're kind of like longing for this moment where they're all going to get to like sit around a campfire and they're going to get to recount these stories, but they don't get that moment because so many people recognize them and what they're doing and the healing that they are bringing. That it says that many people were coming and going that they didn't even have time to eat, which is such an incredibly human detail. Right? That you know the pace is bad when food becomes optional. There's a reason every one of us in the room know the term hangry. Right? Because we all get angry when we get hungry. Right? Because not eating and then trying to do something that requires patience, compassion, and emotional maturity is not a great combination. You can be a kind person and still get sharp when you are running on empty. Right? You can love your kids and still snap over a normal question. You can care about people and still start seeing every need as one more interruption. Not because the person is doing anything wrong, but because your body is telling you the truth before your brain is willing to admit it. And Jesus sees this happening with his disciples. They're not even having time to eat. And so he says, like, one of the most like peaceful, comforting, I don't know why, like maybe it's just me in the season of maybe, but this line, like this idea of hearing Jesus say it is so comforting to me, where it says, hey, let's get away for a bit. Let's go find a quiet place and let's just sit down for a moment. And what I love about that is Jesus doesn't shame them for being tired. He steps closer to them. See, here's the thing that probably just needs to be said plainly is you are not God. I am not God. And that's not an insult, it's just accurate. We have a body, we need sleep, we need food, we need quiet, we need joy, we need people, we need time with God that is not just asking us or asking Him to survive the next thing we come to. Because it turns out you can't do relationship at Mach 5. Right? You can get things done at that speed. You can survive for a little while, but you can't be healthy at that speed. And so Jesus looks at them, and He says, hey, come away with me to a quiet place. Let's rest a bit. So that's when the story gets complicated. Because verse 32 says, so they get in a boat. They left by boat for a quiet place where they could be alone. But many people recognized them and saw them leaving, and people from many towns ran ahead along the shore, and they got there ahead of them. Jesus saw the huge crowd as He stepped from the boat, and He had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. So He began teaching them many things. Now, imagine this scene with me, right? So if I'm in the moment, if Curtis is in that moment, and Jesus says, hey, come away with me for a minute, let's rest. I'm like, yes. And then you get in the boat, and you get out in the boat, and it's like kind of restful because there's only so many people you can fit in the boat at a time. But you peer up over the bow of the ship, and you see this mass of people like just following you along the shore, trying to guess like where you're going to post up because they're going to be there to meet you. And my guess is that's a little disheartening. It's like I just want a moment. But they're out there on the ship, they're catching their breath for a little bit. But Jesus, they pull up, and when they land, the people are there, right? Because they're desperate. Right? Some are sick, some are hungry. We don't know what all the needs are, right? Some are bringing people that they love, hoping for healing. Some have heard enough about Jesus that I just want to meet this guy. And so you finally get out there, and then they pull up, and then Jesus, it says that when He steps out of the boat, Mark says that Jesus looks at the crowd and He has compassion on them. And there are not, I know, I'll highlight, a lot of times I will highlight that this part of the New Testament was written in what's called Koine Greek. I'm a language nerd, closetly. You guys might not think it's closetly because I talk about it often. But I really love this word compassion here because in the original Koine Greek, it's this word splagna. And what this word literally means is guts, right? It's like, have you ever looked at something and you've felt sick to your stomach with what you saw? That's this word for Jesus. Is He looks out and He sees these hurt, desperate, needy people, and it said it hurt Him in His guts. And so He begins giving them what they are looking for. He moves towards them. He sees them. And I love it because, to Jesus, they weren't interruptions. Right? They were people. And it matters for us because, when we are exhausted, people can stop looking like people and start looking like interruptions, can't they? Start looking like problems. Your kids can feel like a problem. Your spouse can feel like a problem. The text message, the person who needs help, the crowd on the shore, it can all start to feel like one more thing that you do not have room for. And here's what I love about this, is Jesus sees the tired disciples and He sees the needy crowds, and He doesn't minimize either one of them. And then it gets late. Verse 35. Late in the afternoon, His disciples came to Jesus and said, this is a remote place and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so that they can go to the nearby farms and villages and buy something to eat. Translation, Jesus, hey, it's time to wrap it up, bud. We got to go. I got a snack on the boat, but I did not get to eat. I'm ready. That's what I picture anyway. I pictured Peter, because Peter was the one who kind of shoot off at the mouth kind of quick. I picture Peter okay, Jesus, we get the point. Send him home. I'm ready to eat. It doesn't say that necessarily, but I'm reading in some extra details. But honestly, this isn't a crazy suggestion here. They're in a remote place. It's late. They say, hey, look, you need to send them away. I mean, we're going to find out there's at least 5,000 people there. And so this isn't them being villains, right? They're doing math. It is late, remote place, thousands of people, nobody packed enough food. DoorDash is not an option. That the whole reason that they had gotten in the boat was that they had not had time to eat. And so they say, send them away. In verse 37, this is what Jesus comes back with. Hey, look, send them away so they can get something to eat. And it says, but Jesus says, you feed them. Which just had to feel like, with what? They asked. We'd have to work for months to earn enough money to buy food for all of these people. In verse 38, how much bread do you have? He asked. Go and find out. They came back and reported, we have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. So Jesus says, you give them something to eat. And they're like, I don't know how we're supposed to do anything with that. And then Jesus asks the question that I think matters the most to us this morning. And it really has stuck out to me, and I just keep circling back that he actually has them go and inventory what they have. Right? What do you have? And then go find out, right? I just picture this scene unfolding. Jesus is like, hey, you feed them. And they're like, okay, haha. How much do you have? What do you mean, how much do I have? Go find out. Go find out? And he actually sends them away to go find out, what do you actually have? So they go check. And in all of this, I don't know, did they go to all 5,000 men that were there? Did they go ask all the family? I don't know, but they go inventory what they have, however it unfolds, and they come back and they report to Jesus, we've got 5 loaves and 2 fish. Not enough, right? Not even close. But not nothing. And the distinction there is important. Because not enough is not the same thing as nothing. And one of the things that I think can happen to us when we get in these seasons of discouragement is sometimes we can fall into this habit where we start calling our little bit nothing because we know it's not enough to solve the entire problem. Right? This is where that either or shows back up. I can't fix everything, so I have nothing. I can't carry everybody, so I have nothing. I cannot make the heaviness disappear, so I have nothing. But Jesus is not asking the disciples to pretend that they have more than they have. He says, what do you have? What do you actually have? Go and find out. He's not telling them to call their little bit nothing. He doesn't dismiss the 5 loaves and 2 fish either, though. He makes them bring it to him. What do you have? Bring me that. And then the rest of the story plays out like this. Then Jesus told his disciples to have the people sit down in groups on the green grass. Also, side note, I love that it puts in there that the green grass detail. I don't know why. It's just the narrator in me, I guess. But he has them sit down on the green grass. So they sat down in groups of 50 or 100. Jesus took the 5 loaves and 2 fish. He looked up towards heaven. He blessed them. Then, breaking the loaves into pieces, he kept giving the bread to the disciples so they could distribute it to the people. He also divided the fish for everyone to share. They all ate as much as they wanted, and afterward the disciples picked up 12 baskets of leftover bread and fish. A total of 5,000 men and their families were fed. In that moment, he takes the bread and the fish, he blesses it, breaks it, and gives it to the disciples to pass out, and everybody eats. Mark says that they had as much as they wanted. Right? This is not a sad church snack here. Everybody gets fed. And there are 12 baskets of leftovers. Now, here's what I don't want us to do with this story, right? Because Jesus works a huge miracle here. I don't want this to turn into like give Jesus your little bit and he will make you super productive so that you can do more than ever, right? Sounds spiritual, but will actually just crush tired people. The point is not that the disciples became enough. The point is that Jesus was enough. And I want to look like practically at like what that means for us when you are in a season of discouragement and tiredness. You see, the disciples participated and Jesus provided. They brought what they had. And then Jesus did what only Jesus could do. And that there is the hope for tired people, that you are not the source, Jesus is. And so what do we do with this? Right? Most of us, we don't need another person to say, hey, you should rest. That's kind of like saying, like, 2% battery left on your phone. Hey, you should charge that. Like, got it. Helpful. Thank you. The more difficult question is, what do I actually do when my life is full, my mind is loud, and my body is tired? Because for most of us, rest is not as simple as clearing the calendar. Sometimes you finally get a quiet minute, but your brain is still sprinting. Sometimes your body stops and your soul is still carrying everything. And so I just want to try and make this simple. And I do not have the answers. Remember, I told you, just last Sunday, emotional maturity of a raccoon trapped in your garage, right here, okay? So we're figuring this out together in real time. But Jesus does not invite tired people to do less. He invites tired people to stop carrying it alone. And in this story, I think he shows us 3 practical things that we can do. And the first is this: change your position. Right? My encouragement would be to you to change your position. Right? Sometimes you cannot think your way out of exhaustion while staying in the exact same place with the exact same noise around you. Right? For the disciples in that moment, we don't know how long they were out in the boat, but for the disciples, they got in a boat. That didn't solve everything for them, right? The crowd still found them. They were following them from the shoreline, but there's only so many people you can fit in a boat. And so there was a moment where I think they could catch their breath, even for just a little bit, even if they were still staring down the barrel of what they had to do when they got back to the shoreline. But for just a few minutes, there was space between them and the noise. And some of us need some version of that right now. Right? In some ways, it means coming back to Jesus honestly, right? Not with a whole new life plan, but with carving out 10 intentional minutes. Right? In the truck before you go in from work or before you step in from home. I mean, it's on the front porch before your kids wake up or before you actually get into your day or you walk around the block. Right? If you're not even sure what you believe about Jesus yet, like I'm not asking you to fake certainty here, but I'm telling you, and science is catching up with this, about the benefits of meditating and giving yourself some space to quiet the noise and get back into your day. And so my encouragement to you, if you're not sure about Jesus, but you're wanting to practice the teachings of Jesus, get up, get still, get honest, put the phone down, take a walk without filling your ears with noise. Let your body slow down long enough for your soul to tell you the truth. At a while back, we have a leadership team for Anthology. Since we are a church plant that started in September, we have an oversight team that's made up of different people from different churches that have helped us get started. And eventually, the goal is to raise up our own local leaders, we'll call them elders, from within here, as those men kind of complete their task, and we're able to just be our own independent, non-denominational church here. And I've got a monthly meeting with them, and one of the things they asked me was, Curtis, what are you doing right now that actually restores you? And I did not have a great answer for that. In fact, to be honest, I didn't really have any answer at all. And so they encouraged me, they said, you've got to find one small thing. Right? And so look, this may not be it for you. Like again, I am just telling you where I'm at and things that's working for me. We had some friends that are part of this church get us what's called a magic puzzle. Have you ever heard of these magic puzzles? These things are like intense puzzles on steroids. I hate puzzles. I'm actually enjoying this. And so what I've done is right now, in this season, is I shut down for about 30 minutes at 3 p.m., because that's the time Abby gets home and it's before our kids get home. And from 3 to about 3:30, we do a puzzle together sitting there at our dining room table. And then she goes and gets the kids, and I go back to knocking out work. And so the point of that, though, is not everybody needs a 3 p.m. puzzle. That will probably drive some of you bananas. But the point is, change something. I never in a million years thought I'd be a guy who liked puzzles, but I really like that 30 minutes. I'm really enjoying that 30 minutes. Find one small way to interrupt the pace before the pace runs you over. A porch, a walk, a puzzle, 10 quiet minutes before you walk back in the house. Not your whole life overhaul, just one small place where you stop, breathe, and remember that you are not carrying this by yourself. Something simple that helps you step out of the current long enough to come back to Jesus. Number 2, and we'll speed this up a little bit. Tell the truth about what you actually have. How much bread do you have? Jesus tells them, go and see. And a lot of us either pretend that we have more than we do, and then we resent everybody for needing us, or we decide that we do not have enough to fix everything, so we have nothing worth bringing. But Jesus does not ask the disciples what they wish they had. He asks them what they actually have. So here's the question. Where are you calling not enough nothing? Right? Not enough patience today is not the same thing as no love for your family. Not enough energy to do everything is not the same as no responsibility. Not enough wisdom to solve the whole problem is not the same as the next faithful step. So bring Jesus what you actually have. And actually, this is part of what we're going to get to celebrate later. Christian and Crystal are getting baptized later this afternoon. And Christian told me that I could share a small piece of his story this morning. He was invited by a friend of his named Sean. He started showing up, and he kept checking things out. And as we talked, one of the things that stood out to me and I loved about Christian is how honest he was. He's carrying real stuff, family stuff, heavy stuff, the kind of stuff that you cannot just like positive think your way out of. And what he said in his own way was basically, look, Curtis, I am ready for help from Jesus. I'm tired of trying to carry this on my own. That is such a clear picture of what we're talking about this morning. Not pretending everything is fine, not pretending you have more than you have, not calling your little bit nothing. Just saying, Jesus, here is what I have, here is what I'm carrying, I need you. That's not weakness, that is faith. And then the last thing is stop trying to be the source. You can love people without carrying what only Jesus can carry. You can serve people without pretending you are unlimited. You can care deeply without becoming the Savior. That is not selfish, that is sanity. The disciples passed out the bread. They did not create it. They served what Jesus gave. And that's why it's so important and intentional to spend time asking the question, what do you actually have? I do want to say this carefully. I think this is important. For some of you, running on empty is not just a busy calendar thing, right? It's gotten heavier than that. Maybe you're discouraged in a way that's difficult to explain. You feel alone even when people are around, and you've had thoughts that scare you. And if that's where you are, and I don't want you to hear this sermon and think, well, I guess I just need a front porch and a Bible. If you are in a dark place, the next faithful step may be telling someone today, I am not okay. Not someday, today. You tell a spouse, a friend, me, call a counselor, text or call 988. Right? There are trained people who will talk with you. It's free, it's confidential, and it's available 24/7. That is not weakness, that is wisdom. It is honesty. It is refusing to carry alone what Jesus never asked you to carry alone. So make one honest change. Right? That's what I'm working on. Sometimes it's coming home at 3 o'clock and working on a puzzle with Abby. Another thing that I've found that I am really enjoying is in the morning when I get up early, I intentionally leave my phone inside and I go sit on the front porch and I watch the sunrise and I realize, man, I'm becoming old. But man, I'm embracing it. I am like a half step away from starting to give people unsolicited lawn advice. But I know that I've come to know like I need something that helps me remember before the world starts talking to me that Jesus has already spoken. Right, before the messages, before the news, before the work, before the problems, before everybody else needs start stacking up in space in my own head, I need to remember I am not the source, Jesus is. Which is what we celebrate every week when we take communion together. On your chairs when you came in today, there's a little Dixie cup. And in that Dixie cup was a little prepackaged communion. If you peel back that first layer, there's a little cup, a little piece of bread, which is meant to remind us of Jesus' body. And then you peel back the second layer, there's a little cup of juice, which is meant to remind us of Jesus' blood. And every week, like if you're a follower of Jesus, what we're going to do is we're going to take a couple moments in quiet prayer. And you could take it whenever you're ready. It's meant to remind us that God loved us so much that He sent Jesus to die on the cross for our sins. If you're not a follower of Jesus, I'd encourage you not to take communion. Please don't feel the pressure to do that. But also don't let this moment pass without thinking about what we talked about this morning. There's a reason that you're here. You're looking for something, and I think the thing you're looking for is Jesus. And this morning, today, when I take communion, I'm taking it and remembering that God has said, I'm not the source. Jesus is the source. And He loved me enough that He sent Jesus down here. And Jesus, He lived, and as I watch His life and I study His rhythms and His teachings, I see, man, I need to run back to Him when I'm tired, run down, and listless. Because He is the source, and that is where we can find the strength. Will you pray with me? God, we love You. God, thank You for loving us. God, thank You for this story. God, I've not really thought about this story from this angle. God, to be honest with you, I'm not sure that I ever really noticed that the beginning of the story was You saying, hey, let's get away and let's rest a little bit. And then they just head into all the more chaos, and sometimes that's how it goes. God, when that happens, and it most assuredly does, because that just seems to be the way life unfolds, God, would You help us to remember to come back to You as the source? God, would You help us to figure out what that means to change our posture, right? What could be that thing that could just let our soul just breathe for a minute? God, so that we could reflect You more accurately, so that we could feel Your hope, Your joy, Your peace within us. God, thank You so much for Jesus. It is in Your Son's holy and awesome name we pray. Amen.